Welcome to the Sound Off Show. Oh, I'm echoing. I didn't know my voice could carry like that. Welcome to the Sound Off Show. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate that. And I would like to begin the program. I do have a guest, a wonderful guest actually, but I would like to start the program by sharing with you, if you'll bear with me, a poem that I wrote 2 years ago. And some people have said they really liked it, so I thought I would share it with you. So here goes. It's titled "The Land of the Free and the Home of the Brave." I'm grateful to live in the land of the free, a gift that was given to you and to me by America's founding fathers, heroes all, who in their fight for freedom all stood tall and pledged their fortunes and their lives so they and their descendants could happily thrive. Today, we're faced with a similar fight to preserve our freedom and protect our precious rights, to ensure for our children a future that is bright. With individual rights, freedoms, and opportunities galore, I wonder, will we stand up to defend these blessings forevermore? Or will we allow evil to spread throughout our land? Because we did not watch, speak out, nor raise a hand. Will our children be taught right from wrong? Will our young patriots be taught to proudly sing our nation's songs, our national anthem, and God Bless America? Will they stand and happily pledge allegiance to the American flag? Will they understand our unique Constitution and Bill of Rights? It is up to each one of us to shine that bright light, for they are the future defenders of all that makes America great. Our nation has no room for divisiveness, bitterness, and hate. We had better stand up before it's too late. For united we stand, divided we fall. To stand united, we must answer the call to defend America once and for all. Do we have the wisdom, the courage, and the will to stand up and fight, to preserve America's unique blessings with all of our might? Without citizen involvement and vigilance, our rights will be taken away. That surely would be a very sad day. Let there be light from above to guide us, and the love of God to strengthen us. May God bless America, our national flag, our national anthem, our Constitution, our citizens, and all who serve and strive to protect and honor them in the land of the free and the home of the brave. I guess you can tell I'm somewhat of a patriot. I love this country. I'm proud to be an American citizen. And I just couldn't help myself. Those words just kind of poured out of me as I was thinking about some of the things that are transpiring in our nation today. Now, with that, I would like to happily introduce my guest, Rob Roper. Hi, Rob.
Hey, Linda. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Rob is the president of the Ethan Allen Institute, which the Ethan Allen Institute does great work and gets wonderful messages out to those of us who pay attention. And Rob's been doing that for how many years now?
Oh, my goodness. I think it's between 7 and 8 now.
Time flies.
I came on in December 2012. So.
Wow. Yep, that would be, 7.5 years. Good for you, Rob. Well, I appreciate what you do, and I'm sure a lot of other people do, too. I even have one of your letters here, Ethan Allen letter.
Excellent.
Yeah, you and John McClowry are on the cover, and John founded the Ethan Allen Institute many years ago, correct?
He did. John founded it in 1993, and
Wow.
we've been going strong ever since.
Yes, and we're blessed to have the organization in Vermont. So, Rob, you pay attention to what's going on in this state, probably in the country as well, and I just wondered what's weighing most heavily on your mind these days.
Oh, good Lord, Linda. There's so many things
I know. I know.
that are weighing heavily. I think your poem really encapsulated a lot of the problems. Well, your poem actually encapsulated the solutions to a lot of the problems that we face, but they need to be put into practice. So much of the social upheaval that's happening right now, I think, stems from a lack of understanding of those principles that you outlined in your poem. But before all the social unrest, I would have said easily that the economic shutdown due to COVID-19 was the most important thing pressing on us and me. Certainly it's been devastating.
Yes.
And I think that it's going to continue to be devastating for our little state. Well, I mean,
Oh, I see. Not exactly. You mean a lot more cases, but the.
Well, I'm talking about the economic fallout from it. I certainly hope there's not a health resurgence and we see the loss of a lot more life. I think if you look at it purely from the perspective of did we stop the virus from spreading, we certainly have so far. But what I don't think we take into account is the fact that at some point people have to go back to living their lives and earning a living and generating income to pay for their own household budgets and to generate the taxes that pay for services. And we can't just print money to do that.
No,
not for very long. And the country's already $25 trillion dollars in debt. I mean, the credit card was maxed out before we even started along this path.
Exactly.
So when we do go back, I mean, I certainly hope there's not a resurgence of the virus, but it very well may be. But I don't know how we're going to get the economy going again and combat the virus unless there's a vaccine, and that's a very difficult conundrum to untangle.
Well, and speaking of the economic effects, even prior to the COVID-19 virus coming into the picture, Vermont was hurting financially.
Oh, Vermont was hurting. In fact, in January, before all this really hit, there was an article in The Economist, which is a very famous global financial newspaper. It's based out of London, England. So all the way from across the pond, as they like to say, they looked over at the United States and wrote an article about the one state that's been left behind in the economic boom that we were experiencing before COVID-19. And that little one state was us.
Really?
It was Vermont, and here these English economists over there, oh man, they really screwed it up. Well, in Vermont. And it's an important thing to note, because what they were saying in the article is that our high taxes and regulations are the result, the result of our high taxes and regulations are that we were the one state in the country never to recover from the Great Recession of 2007 to 2009. We still hadn't recovered from that.
Really?
In January, everybody else was doing great. You saw, the economy was booming. We had 3.5% unemployment. The participation in the labor market had increased. Everyone was doing great except for us. And they said, why could that be? And it was, we got high taxes and a lot of red tape. Anybody wants to try and do anything here has to jump through a million hoops. And
regulations.
And if you succeed in jumping through all those hoops and make a go of it, they come and confiscate a huge proportion of whatever your success is in the form of high taxes. So it was a failing formula before COVID-19.
Yeah.
And if we double down on that going forward with the same policies and the same governing philosophy, we're never, ever going to recover from this blow. As well. And what I see happening in Montpelier with the legislature is a doubling down on the failed economies, economic policies of the past. We have to wake people up and get them to say, hey, we need to change.
Well, and the things that you've mentioned drove a number of people out of the state. And they moved to Florida or the Carolinas or whatever. And many of those people obviously could afford to pick up and relocate. And so their tax dollars left the state. And I don't know if any of them had businesses and were providing jobs and income for people. I don't know. But even, as you say, before the COVID-19 virus struck, there were job openings all over the place in Franklin County. Wherever you look, there were signs saying, we're hiring, so we had a problem before that, as you say, and somebody has to wake up and start making a wise plan for the recovery in this state. It's been, look at the one thing that really bothers me is the fund for teacher and state employees for their retirement and their health care. I won't be popular for saying this, but I really think that anybody who is benefiting from those benefits needs to pay in at least 50% of the cost of the insurance and the retirement. Now, maybe I'm wrong. I'm not an economist.
Well, we do need to restructure that program for municipal pensions for people entering. I mean, the people who are already in the system, a promise has been made to them, and you can agree whether or not it was a good idea to make those promises in the past, but there were promises made, and they should be promises kept because people have planned their lives based on those promises. But we have a $4.5 billion unfunded liability in those municipal pensions. That's for teachers and state employees and people who work for the town.
So, excuse me, it's municipal employees as well as state employees as well as the teachers.
Yes, for their pensions and for their ongoing health care benefits.
Wow.
It's a huge financial problem. $4.5 billion, that's a lot of money for a little state like Vermont. And the way it works is, some of that money is collected from the people who have the pensions. They put money into it. The taxpayers are supposed to be putting money into it every year to build up the trust fund in order to pay for it. But our legislature for several years now has not been putting that money into the fund. And they've been rigging the numbers so it looks like, even though they're not putting the rig number total amount in, it's a lesser amount than what is realistic based on returns that you get in the stock market investments. They've been saying, without getting too far into the weeds, we're going to get 8.5% interest on this money when we're only getting like 6.5%.
Only? I'd like to be getting 6.5%
interest. Well, in some cases, I think it's been a little lower, but that's been the average over the years, is about 6.5% interest on this. So that gap between the 6.5% and 8% reality and the 8.5% prediction has to be made up by the taxpayers in the end. So we're going to get hammered for this if we don't fix the problem soon. And that's just one of the we've had our bond rating in the state. Our ability to borrow money is based on the quality of our bond rating.
That's gone down.
It's gone down twice by two different rating agencies.
And it used to be excellent.
It used to be AAA, and now it's AA plus. So it's not like we're going off the end of the cliff, but it's not a good sign. It's not a good sign.
Well, there's a lot of work to be done. And the people who are making the decisions and the laws need to really be on top of what makes sense, not from a political point of view, but from an economic point of view, for the stability of the state and the people. And I think a lot of the proposed laws or recent laws that have been passed in the legislature need to go away.
Well, I'll tell you, if we're going to recover from the COVID-19 economic shutdown and the 2007 to 2009 Great Recession, which, as I said at the beginning of the show, we never really recovered from. We have to do things a lot differently, and that means making it easier for people to employ people, making it easier for people to find employment, make it easier for people to be entrepreneurs and create their own employment.
Absolutely.
There are a lot of people who are out of work right now, and sad to say, in the tourism industry, in the lodging industry, and in the restaurant industry in particular, I think a lot of those jobs may not come back. I saw one study that said they expect 30% of the restaurants in the state to close as a result of this, which is devastating. I mean, that's a big part of our culture. That's a big part of our quality of life here. Mm-hmm. But if they close, think of all those employees. What are they going to do? We're going to have to make it easy for them to create their own jobs by being entrepreneurs. And right now, the legislature is hostile to anybody who wants to work as an independent contractor or work in the gig economy. It's very difficult to do because they want everybody to be an employee. So if you're starting a new business and you want to hire an independent contractor to come in and work for you, it's very difficult to do that. Really? If you want to work as an independent contractor, it's very difficult to do that. So that's something that needs to be figured out.
Why?
Well, they want everybody to have to go be in an employer-employee relationship for state benefits. So you're paying the healthcare costs and the workers' compensation costs of the employer. Well, of course, if you're a struggling business, you may not be able to do that and still survive. So the option is having no business and no job for either of the people on either end of the equation, or you have to relax those restrictions to let things get settled back in and let economic activity begin to percolate. The other thing is our high taxes, as mentioned before. I mean, if I think of the woman who cuts my hair, and as you can see, she hasn't done it in quite a while.
Oh, that's fine.
So that's usually pretty close crop, but she owns property just off of Main Street in my town. Just a little barber shop, and it's her, and it used to be her daughter. I don't think she's doing it anymore. Maybe one other person who comes in and rents the chair from her. But she hasn't gotten a haircut for me from a couple of months now, and I'm sure that's the case with a lot. So she's given up her income. Her rent, I'm sure, is still the same, and she's going to come back. And what they're talking about doing in Montpelier is a huge property tax increase on businesses, the non-homestead property tax. So she's going to get whacked with a huge property tax increase. She doesn't have the income coming in for the past 3 months to pay that property tax increase. Another possibility that they're talking about to raise revenue to cover a revenue shortfall is expanding the sales tax to services. So she's going to all of a sudden she's going to have to start adding a sales tax to the service of cutting my hair. A lot of people haven't gotten income themselves, so her customers are going to come in here and say, I had a paycheck in 3 months and you're going to charge me 6% on my haircut and maybe have to increase the price of my haircut so you can pay your property taxes. And it's just a cycle that's going to spiral down unless we do something to fix it.
That tax has been brewing for a long time.
Oh, they bring it up every couple of years.
Yeah. And how about there's a novel idea here. How about making Vermont a state where people can be independent of government and, just establish a private business is not the enemy of government. But I feel like the government here wants to control everything.
They do. And who wants to run a business if somebody's running it for you from Montpelier and badly? Right. And doing it really badly. And in fact, there was just a story in the Valley Reporter out of Waitsfield about it's a wedding venue in restaurant sort of combination structure. And one of their partners is leaving and moving to Florida, because the business can no longer sustain two people. They're not even sure if it can sustain one partner.
Wow.
Doing this. They've renovated the building. They put all this money into the building. And one of this woman's comments, she said, as she's leaving the state, is the legislature doesn't understand what it means to run a business, and they think we're all the enemy.
I don't think they care.
I don't think they care either. And I'll tell you why. I know they don't care, because if you're in that lodging industry and you're looking for help, well, one thing the legislature is doing is Governor Scott and the Republicans in the legislature, I give them credit, want to release a $400 million package of federal COVID relief funds to businesses that have been, that's what it was for.
Private businesses, that's what it was for, to help them stay afloat, keep their employees paid through this shutdown, so that they can come out the other side and try to get running. The Democrats in the legislature and the progressives are holding up that money, except for I think $73 million. They're releasing $73 million of it instead of the $400 million of it, because they think that they can get the rules changed so they can spend it to backfill budget problems that they caused. I was just going to say that they created.
So if you're a business, I mean, this money was for you. If you're a business person out there in Vermont and you're wondering, where's my relief? It's being held up for this totally invalid reason. What they are doing though is if you're in the lodging industry, they're contemplating a bill right now. I think it's in Senate Finance, or maybe it's in Senate Natural Resource and Energy. In this point, it was at one point. They're trying to ban little mini shampoo bottles that hotels put in bathrooms.
Could you tell me why?
Well, their logic is, well, there's too much plastic out there and we don't want to have plastic. Well, think about this. If you're a small bed and breakfast, you're coming through this thing, this COVID shutdown, I'm sure your reservations are way down because nobody's going to come here and quarantine for have to quarantine for 2 weeks for a weekend rental or 1 week. And what they're saying is you can't hand out little bottles of shampoo anymore. You have to put in a dispenser for shampoo and conditioner, which costs you one for every bathroom. And, let's say they're $25 a piece. I mean, that's, for every 4 rooms, that's $100. If you've got, 10 rooms, it adds up.
Sure.
And then it's a maintenance issue because those things have to be, make sure that they're full. They have to be cleaned, especially in post-COVID.
Sure.
So why would they do this now? Why are they? I mean, it boggles my mind that they would do this to the lodging industry. And you may say it's a small thing. Maybe it would have been a small thing 6 months ago, but it's not a small thing now. There are no small things now when you're a business that's trying to struggle to stay afloat. Same thing with the plastic bag ban. I mean, they passed this plastic bag ban a year. It's what are we? We said it was the 16th of June. This comes into play in 2 weeks, exactly 2 weeks. So.
We won't be able to use any plastic bags?
The grocery stores and retail shops will not be able to give you a plastic bag for your groceries, or your, if you go to the art store, that you can't put your craft equipment in a plastic bag. So here's what they said that they want to do this. They want people to use reusable tote bags. Okay. Well, they're not particularly sanitary.
No. Reusable
tote bags. So there have been studies done that show that they can carry virus. So when this legislature is telling us we need to shut down our businesses, we need to stay at home and isolate, we need to wear masks wherever we go and do all this stuff, they're also trying to force us to use a reusable tote bag that's not sanitary in the grocery store. They're banning the plastic bags, single-use plastic bags, which are sanitary. You take them, you use them, and you throw them away, or you put them in your garbage can to line your garbage can. And if you don't do that, they're going to charge you 10 cents per paper bag to take out. At least 10 cents per paper bag. So here's somebody, again, who hasn't had an income for 3 months, who's going to the store to try to buy groceries. And if you have, 5 bags of groceries, that's an extra 50 cents. Again, doesn't sound like much, but in these times, every little bit counts.
Government, get out of our lives. We are supposed to be a free people. And the regulations, the rules, the control of not only the businesses, but ending up controlling the people as well, and our property and education and healthcare. Government has its hands in everywhere, whether it's state or federal government. And this has to stop. You know what? We cannot keep putting up with this. Most people don't probably pay attention. That's why I have this show. That's why I bring you and other people on the show who are in the know about what is happening in the state. People are, trying to make a living, recover from this, take care of their children at home, try to homeschool them. It's a shock to the system. And to have government putting all kinds of regulations on us at the same time and more taxes.
Yeah, these are just the little things that I'm mentioning here. And there are some big ones on the horizon. And the newsletter you held up actually highlights a number of them. The big one, I think, is the Global Warming Solutions Act, which is being debated in the Senate right now. And that's basically, if you like having large swaths of the economy shut down, that's what the Global Warming Solutions Act is really aimed to do. It's any aspect of the economy that results in greenhouse gas emissions. So anything that,
driving your car, moving, taking your, if you've got a van, if you're a plumber or electrician or craftsman and you've got a van with all your equipment, you go from job to job, they're going to raise the gasoline prices on it. But it goes further than that. It's so undemocratic in the way they want to do it. They've been trying to pass a lot of these reforms in previous sessions, but they're all unpopular. Nobody wants these things. So what they're doing is to say, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to pass a law that mandates we reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, because everybody's in favor of that. Oh,
if
really?
you say, hey, do you want to save the planet by reducing greenhouse gas emissions? I think most Vermonters will say, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. But when you explain to people what it would mean in terms of their lives, their livelihoods and the economics of it, then they say, well, not so much.
It sounds good on the surface.
So it sounds good on the surface, but then when you delve into it, so what they're trying to do is say, okay, we're going to pass this Global Warming Solutions Act that says we're going to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions by, I forget the percentages, by 2025, then 2030, and then 2050, and it's going to be mandated in law, and if we don't do it, then any citizen can sue the state and say that you haven't fulfilled this. And when I say any citizen, what we're talking about is special interest groups with big money are going to come in. The Conservation Law Foundation, VPERC, organizations like that will sue the state and have judges basically cracking the whip on the legislature to do more. So what the other way this works is the legislature is not saying anything that they're going to actually do to reduce those greenhouse gas emissions. They're going to impanel a panel and of like 22 people who are going to come up with a plan to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions, and they're going to hand that plan off to the Agency of Natural Resources, which will create rules and implement those rules. And what are those rules? Ain't nobody saying, but we can speculate about what some of them might be.
Can I drive my car, my gasoline?
Well, ultimately they could ban the internal combustion engine from use in Vermont. I don't think it'll be that extreme to begin with, but they could ban ATVs for recreational use. They could ban snow machines for regular. God
forbid, you should have some fun.
For recreational use, they could ban leaf blowers and gas-powered lawnmowers. So if you've got a lawn business that you're doing, or even if you just want to have your back.
Well, I'm on my own.
Yeah, if you want to, they could say, hey, Linda, that's illegal. You can't have that gasoline-powered mower anymore.
Get off my property. Get out of my house. Get out of my car, government, and leave me alone.
And there's some big things that could come too. They could say that you can no longer have, an oil or natural gas or propane heating of your home. You're grandfathered in, but if you renovate your house or if you go to build a new house, you can't put in oil, heat, natural gas. Or
what if you go to sell your house? Can you sell it the way it is?
That's a good question. That could be, but again, they won't say what any of these rules are going to be. And that's why it's such a sort of a vicious way of going about putting these rules in. But think about what the impact this is going to have on a state that's trying to recover from the COVID-19 shutdown. It's going to make things more expensive. It's going to make things, if you're, okay, I'm out of work because the restaurant that I worked at went out of business and I was a chef there, or I was a waiter there, or I was a bartender there. I can't do that anymore. Well, here's what I can do. Maybe I can start a little business where I take people out on ATV trails. No, you can't do that anymore because that's illegal.
Wow.
Maybe I'll start a little landscaping business, and okay, you can do that, but we're going to charge you more for the gasoline you put in your trucks, and you're not allowed to use
no weed whacker,
no gas powered weed whacker, no. So it's just crazy that they're thinking about. I think they're crazy for thinking about doing this at all.
I do.
But at this particular time in our economic history, it's insane. It's absolutely insane. And as you said, I don't think they care. I think they're ideologically driven. They see themselves in the role of saving the planet. from all this bad stuff that human beings do, and they don't care.
The state of Vermont has what? The lowest carbon footprint?
We're a carbon sink.
In the country?
We're a carbon sink.
What does that mean?
It means that the trees that we have the Green Mountains absorb more carbon than we emit.
Exactly.
Over the course of the year.
So why are they doing this in Vermont? I don't even like driving down Route 7, and I don't know if it's in Vergennes or where it is, but there's a huge field of solar panels. Now, one of Vermont's biggest sources of income is tourism. How many people are going to want to come to Vermont to look at those?
Yeah. In fact, I would encourage people, if you haven't seen the movie yet, Planet of the Humans by Michael Moore is the producer on it. I forget the name of the guy who wrote it. Is it
in the theaters?
It was supposed to be in the theaters, but COVID-19 kept it out of the theaters, so they put it on YouTube, I think. You can stream it for free on YouTube. Yeah. And you know Michael Moore. Michael Moore's he's a left-wing movie maker, and you know a lot of the things that come out of this movie are things that those of us who are more on the right side of the political spectrum have been saying about the renewable energy industry for years. But nobody pays attention because we're all in the pockets of moneyed interest. But Michael Moore saying it has gotten some people's attention that the wind towers and the solar panels are really not all that environmentally friendly.
No, they're not. It's Planet of the People.
Planet of the Humans. It's a play on Planet of the Apes.
Yeah.
And
YouTube.
And it's and he really goes through. He shows all the environmental degradation that happens as a result of this. And it's I wish I could say he was sort of on our side, but it's really more anti-capitalist than it is anti-renewable energy. They say that renewable energy has just been subsumed by the capitalist culture, and it's all about profit, and it doesn't care about the environment. But it's worth watching, and the points that they make about wind power and solar power and how it's created and what its impact on the environment really is worth seeing.
Well, I have wondered. With all of these, we don't have a lot of windmills that I know of in Vermont. Maybe there are. I might see one somewhere on somebody's property, but is there any place where there's a row of them in Vermont?
Oh, sure.
There is.
The one in Lowell Mountain is probably the most prominent one in this area. And your hometown of Georgia, they got 4.
Where?
On Georgia Mountain, I think.
Oh yes, of course.
I saw them when I was driving here to the studio today.
Right.
They're going, and there's a couple others in the state that I'm not as familiar with because I don't drive around there as much. But no, we've actually been successful, and I think Bill Scott deserves a lot of credit for really saying that this is not a Vermont scale industry, and we don't want it here. And David Blittersdorf of All Earth Renewables is who's the real pusher of this. The windmills is sort of given up.
I still have not gotten over the loss of the Vermont Yankee. Hundreds of people earning good incomes in that southern part of the state, Windsor area, isn't it?
Yes.
And those jobs just evaporated. 4 cents a kilowatt at the time versus what we're having to pay now for what's trying to replace Vermont Yankee. It was clean energy, it was cheap, and it provided wonderful jobs. That whole area of the state is in trouble financially.
Yeah, the southern part of Vermont is in a world of hurt economically these days. Most of the state is hurting. The Northeast Kingdom is hurting pretty badly. Every place except maybe Chittenden County and Franklin County, I think, is having a hard time.
Well, I'm wondering who has a wise plan to deal with that and to bring us back to vitality.
Well, we at the Ethan Allen Institute have a plan, but it's hard for us to get it implemented because we're not in elective office.
We have to get some people in elective office who understand the wisdom of the ideas of the Ethan Allen Institute.
And that's what we have. A campaign season is coming up. So, I would encourage people to ask the people who are running for office really hard questions about where they stand on things like the Global Warming Solutions Act, the Transportation Climate Initiative. That's another one that's on the table, which would increase gasoline prices and diesel prices by 17 cents a gallon. People who have had their incomes shredded by COVID-19, you're then going to turn around and say, well, we want you to pay an extra 17 cents a gallon. Statewide, it's estimated to be a $90 million tax on Vermont drivers. To fund subsidies for electric vehicles and electric vehicle charging stations and the solar panels we were just talking about. Well,
aren't there already charging stations around the state? I think the governor was in favor of that.
Yeah.
For electric vehicles.
Yeah, we spend a couple of $1 million a year. I think it's $4.5 million.
So you have to pay to charge your car, right?
I don't know. I don't have one, so I don't know. No. I don't think you do. I think it's free.
Oh, we're paying for that?
I think. Again, I don't want to speak out of turn because I don't.
So I'm paying for that. It's bad enough that the state is subsidizing the purchase of an electric car. What is it, $4,000 or something like that?
Yeah, they're different. And you know what really burns me about this is you always hear the progressives, small p, in Montpelier talk about equity and economic equity and justice, economic justice. And with these subsidies, you really have a situation where it's the single mom in the minivan that's 10 or 12 years old filling up at the tank is paying the subsidies of the guy who has a Prius. That's been, he's gotten a $7,000 federal subsidy and a $4,000 state subsidy, and all the charging stations along the road are basically, the gas station you pay for is paid for by the gas station.
Yes.
But the charging station is paid for by the taxpayer.
That's because they want to advance that and get people involved in the electric car.
Yeah, but it really is robbing the poor to subsidize the better off, and it's not a fair program, and it doesn't make a whole lot of economic sense either.
I resist subsidizing a personal purchase by someone who, as you were kind of saying, has more money than the people who are having to subsidize his purchase of the vehicle. It's all because these people who want what do I want to say, electric cars and all kinds of green items, and in that I don't even like it when I get my electric bill and there's a fee on there. I resist that. It's not a huge fee. Well, there's several fees. There's a customer fee, and you name it.
One of those fees is to fund Efficiency Vermont.
Yes.
And I think their annual budget, last time I looked, was in the neighborhood of $60 million a year.
Oh my gosh.
And, we've got a $430 million deficit that we're going to be facing for the 2021 budget cycle. And that would be the first place I'd start. Is with that $60 million budget. Their original mission was to go around and give everybody the curly-Q fluorescent light bulbs and tell us that, which not particularly good technology, but that mission is done. And instead of saying, okay, mission accomplished, we don't need you anymore, they're trying to find new things for them to do and expand their budget. Mm-hmm. Expand their mission. The stuff that isn't even relevant to electricity anymore. They want to get them into weatherizing homes.
That's another thing that bugs the living daylights out of me. Why, if you own a home and it needs, are they talking about repairs, or are they talking about weatherization that suits them?
Well, no, I think that they would come in and help put in new insulation and new windows and
but they all have to meet certain standards.
Yeah, to meet standards that would insulate your home. The idea would be you would use less fuel to heat your home over the course of the year.
And the taxpayers would pay for that.
And the taxpayers pay. Well, actually, it's electric ratepayers. So that charge on your electric bill it's a tax. It's a, in quotes, tax. They would probably.
I didn't volunteer. I didn't agree to do that. I'm buying my power. Leave me alone.
Good luck.
Where can I, let's see, where would be a good place to go? I know so many people talking about, I have friends moving out of the state.
Yeah, no, I see it all the time. And we have, we post things on, we have a, Facebook page and a Twitter account, as everybody has to have these days. And, you post something on there about what they're doing in Vermont with the Global Warming Solutions Act or the Transportation Climate Initiative or the shampoo bottle ban or the plastic bag ban. And inevitably 3 or 4 people will quote, we'll post comments there saying, I'm so glad I moved out of there 3 years ago. We took our business out of there 5 years ago. I'm selling my house and getting out of here as soon as I can. It's on the market. And it's really discouraging because, if those people leave, who's going to be here to fight to make things better?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a very good question. I don't feel, I'm going to ask you. Do you, Rob Roper, feel that it is the role or the place of government to tell a private business owner how much he has to pay his employees an hour?
Oh, the minimum wage. No, I don't.
I don't either.
The minimum wage is actually an interesting discussion because it's likely to come up, if not again this year, then next year. And again, as employers come back, if you're a restaurant or a small retail shop that's been closed for the last 3 months, and you're trying to get back into business, you've blown all your capital. Maybe you've got some money from COVID relief, but not all of it because they're holding it up in the legislature. But you've got some money, but not a lot. And then you need to start employing people again when business picks up and things get back to normal, which I hope it happens sooner rather than later. You may not have the money to pay somebody $15 an hour.
Exactly.
And your business can't survive if you have to pay somebody $15. In fact, I'll point to that article in the Valley News about the wedding venue. They said one of the reasons that they're going under is because the minimum wage increases that the Vermont legislature passed increased their front end costs by, I think they said 50%.
Wow.
And it's like, oh my God, and it created a situation where the back end of the restaurant and the front end of the restaurant weren't getting paid equitably, and they couldn't distribute the money fairly, and it just became a mess. And we're also dealing with to tie in the social justice aspects of it. Minimum wages were originally put in place to prevent African Americans from being able to compete with white laborers. They were out competing. A lot of employers were hiring African Americans because they were cheaper. And some would say, okay, well, that's exploitation. You're exploiting the black laborer because you're paying them less than you would pay a white laborer. Well, what they were really doing is they were stealing the white laborer jobs. They weren't paying the white laborers more anymore. The African Americans were taking their jobs. So the minimum wage came in and said, no, you can't pay them less money. You have to pay them this much money. Is that where
it came from?
It is. And so it has a racist origin to it. But the idea is that it keeps people who may not have skills, who are just entering the job market, from being able to compete with others based on price. Anyway, if you're a white collar person and you, let's say, I'll throw out an example like a graphic designer. If you graduate with a degree in graphic design and the going rate for graphic design is somewhere between, let's say, $30 an hour, and if you're really good, $150 an hour.
Whoa.
And I've seen those rates.
Wow.
And that's about what it is. You can say to somebody who's bidding out a graphic design project, hey, you know what? I will do it for less than the going rate. I don't have experience. I don't have a big portfolio, but I'm going to work really hard for you, and I'm going to do it for less so I get a chance to get some experience and get my work out there. We don't think that's a problem. Hey, great for you. That's entrepreneurialism. That's competing on price with somebody. And maybe the other person says, okay, well, it's not worth my effort to go after that job. I'll go after a different job with a different client. But you can compete. if you're white collar and you have that kind of, if your job is in that range. But if you're blue collar and if you're the government says you can't do that. That's what a minimum wage job says, is you cannot compete.
Well,
and that keeps people from entering the job market, and it's really not fair. And I don't think a lot of people really look at it from that perspective, but they should.
What if you and I were both working at the same restaurant, doing the same type of work, but you had been there for 10 years, and so over the years, you may have started some. I don't know, when labor prices were much lower, and you worked up to $15 an hour. And then I come in and I'm going to do the same work, but I don't have the experience, I don't have the knowledge, but I'm getting paid the same per hour as you are.
Yeah, it does create resentment. We saw that. And what happens is those people with the experiences say, well, if this guy who just started yesterday and doesn't know what he's doing is getting paid $15 an hour, well, then I deserve $18 an hour, $19 an hour. And if you want me to stick around, you're going to have to pay me that. And then, okay. But then the business owner has to decide, can I still afford all of this? And again, coming out of COVID-19, when businesses are going to be, really trying to rise from the ashes like a phoenix in many cases, to put these added burdens on them around their necks as they try to do so is counterproductive. We need to get people working again.
Well, I personally think that government should have no role in determining what someone should get paid. That should be between the employer and the employee. And if you come in to a new job and you have no experience, you need to work your butt off. And you need to show up on time, stay late if needed, make suggestions or ask questions, and become the best employee in the business. And then you can earn what you and your employer agree is a fair hourly wage. And
before COVID-19 happened, we were in a labor-friendly environment. As you said, there's signs everywhere, help wanted. That means that it's buyer's market, seller's market. So the person who's selling labor was in the driver's seat, and you were seeing wages rise pretty high. In fact, I remember 2 years ago in a debate in a house race, in my district, one of the people was arguing for the minimum wage, and one of our retail store owners, asked a question, said, "It doesn't matter. We're already paying more than that." We're advertising more than that. We still can't get people to come work when we're paying $16, $17 an hour.
Well, one of the things that bothers me a lot is that when it's about education. And we need to have an education system. I know I'm flipping around here, but we need to have an education system that has high expectations, not only of the teachers, educators, but of the students. And children need to be taught. I'm so happy that I'm not the smartest person in the world by far, but I feel like I got a really good fundamental basic education. And I learned work ethic. I learned that at home. A lot of what our children become starts in the household. What kind of an example do the parents set? And, do they have jobs to do at home to learn the work ethic like I did? And I'm not seeing it. And when we have, 25% or so, maybe more, of our high school graduates going off to college and needing remedial reading, are you kidding me?
Yeah, no, our schools in Vermont are not in good shape. In fact, we were talking before the program, the state scores just came out today, or maybe it was yesterday, but I saw the article today, and they're down again. This has been a trend for the last few years. And you think about, we spend depending upon whose number you look, somewhere between $19,000 and $25,000 per student on average in the state, which is towards the top of the list. If in some lists, we're the top, the most expensive state for public education, and our school scores are shrinking. And we have had Act 46 with the school district consolidation. We've got all this, the new grading system that they put in place, and proficiency-based learning.
Oh my God!
All this stuff. We've expanded pre-K. In quotes, high quality pre-K.
That should not be in the schools.
That's driven a lot of small businesses out of business with the regulations and the competition from government. Yeah,
absolutely. So they could grab these 3 and 4 year olds.
Yeah, so they can grab the 3 and 4 year olds. But we started doing that in 2000. Well, they passed a law in 2006. They started executing it in 2007, and now those kids who were 3 and 4 back in 2007, they're and 2008 and 9 and 10, they're matriculating through the 4th grade now, and their scores stink compared to the kids who didn't have access to this. So it's actually making the problem more expensive and worse outcomes for the children. And the disparity, again, we're talking about the social justice is such a hot topic. Well, you look at the disparity between low income and minority kids in the public schools versus white middle class peers. It's horrific. It's absolutely horrific. This public school system does not do a good job of teaching kids who are low income, who come from a minority background in general, or are English second language speakers, or special needs. They do a terrible job. I think they do a very good job with kids who are more mainstream. My daughter went through the public school system all the way, and she got a wonderful education. I have no qualms with the public school education in our community. It wasn't quite the right program for my son, so we were lucky to have the resources to be able to send him to an independent school, and that worked out great for him. I wish every family had the same opportunity that we had to pick the right school for our kid,
including private schools.
Yeah, private schools. I mean,
religious schools. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, well, there actually is a case coming down from the Supreme Court. Who knows how they're going to vote or rule, I should say, on Espinoza versus, I forget what state it is, but that would say that any state that offers school choice to students has to offer it to religious schools too. So that would be a big opening here in Vermont to allow, because we have tuitioning, and it used to be 93 towns, but I don't, with all the mergers, I'm not sure what the number is anymore, but it's roughly that. And it's wonderful opportunities for kids in the Northeast Kingdom to go to St. Johnsbury Academy. They go to Linden Institute. They can pick from a handful of 5 or 6 public schools in Vermont and New Hampshire, or they can, travel somewhere. Go to my partner at the Ethan Allen Institute, John McClary, sent his daughter to France for 1 year on the tuitioning voucher that he got. Really? Through the school, through the Vermont tuitioning system. It's a great opportunity for kids. And, if you're in a school that's not working for you, and you happen to be of a lower income, or you happen to be minority or special needs, and the public school's not working for you, give them the opportunity to get out and find something else. Because if they're stuck there for even just a couple of years, that could have a detrimental effect on their whole educational career. And it's cruel and unusual punishment to force kids into a situation where they're not learning.
Well, it's not fair to the taxpayers. It's not fair to the children. And guess what? It's not fair to the educators. I think they're all trapped in a failed system. Yeah. And that has to change. We are paying so much money, and we're not getting a good return on it. I'm not saying that there aren't great teachers out there.
Oh, there are a lot of great teachers, but it's a question of finding the right system for the right kid. And if you put a kid into a system where he or she is not going to thrive because it just doesn't mesh with their learning style, you're setting the child up and the school up for failure.
I agree.
And it's not, and you're right, it's not.
And the rest of the students.
And as I said, my daughter had great fit in the public school. I mean, she did a great job. She had great teachers. She had a great peer group. Everything was right for her. My son, different story. And it's not because the teachers were different. It's not because the school was, good 1 year and bad the next. It's because it just didn't work for his personality and the way he needed to learn.
Mm-hmm. And we all pretty much understand that different children have different needs. but we can't meet all those different needs in one classroom, because some of those needs might interfere with the learning of the other students. If a child can't keep up in the classroom, and they feel that, they know that they're frustrated, they're upset, angry maybe, that's where you get children either withdrawing and just doing nothing, or acting out and disturbing, the learning for the rest of the classroom. So I really believe that the best thing we can do for everybody is to make sure that the children in a given grade are capable of doing the grade level work within a reasonable range. Mm-hmm. And that way, everybody can kind of thrive, and the teacher can really focus on doing the work to get the children to advance. Mm-hmm.
It can be anything. It could be the level of learning that they have at home is different. I had one friend of mine had a daughter who was being bullied by a peer. And there was very little that the school was able to do about it or was willing to do about it. And he complained and he complained and he complained. So my daughter can't learn. It's not because the teacher was bad. It's not because the curriculum was wrong. It is because this kid was being picked on incessantly by a bully. The school couldn't really stop it.
In the classroom?
In the playground, in the classroom, after school, it was just this negative vibe that was constantly bombarding this poor kid. She couldn't learn in that environment. So they again, these are people who had the resources to pull her out and send her to the Catholic school down the road where she did well. But parents need to have that resource. I think it's moral. I think it's a moral imperative to give every parent the resource. If their child's not doing well in a particular situation, they need to be able to get out of that situation and find one that works.
Well, I feel that parents should be able to select the school. I'm talking K through 12. Select the school that will best meet the needs of their child. And I think that there ought to be a financial range that would be paid for any student, or the high one level. Mm-hmm. To go to whatever school that the parents feel would work best for that child. And I think the money should follow the child.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It should follow the child.
But we're down to the last minute, Rob.
Oh, my goodness. This hour flew by. It flew by so fast.
I know. I've heard that before. Well, I thank you so much for coming on and enlightening all of us. I know you're on top of so much. Yeah.
Well, I would encourage people to go to ethanallen.org. You can learn a lot more about our organization. We're coming. This is a weird legislative session. They're still there. Zooming in. So normally at this time we'd be putting together our roll call profiles of all the legislators, but they're still voting on stuff. So it'll be look out in the next month or two for us to do a profile on every legislator on the key votes, how Perfect. They voted, and explanations of the votes.
ethanallen.org.
ethanallen.org.
You can learn a lot there. And watch what your legislators are doing and see if you're happy. And if not, then talk with them. Well, Rob, as usual, you're just filled with all kinds of important information and news for the viewers and me. And I really appreciate what you're doing. I hope to see you soon.
Oh, I'll come back anytime, Linda.
Thanks a lot. Bye, folks. Have a good week, and I'll see you again next week.